I never imagined that residing in Maplewood residences would thrust me into the center of a federal investigation. Yet here I am. Allow me to recount how our Homeowners Association, HOA, President Linda Thompson, whom neighbors discreetly referred to as Linda the Dictator, attempted to ruin my life, only to see her own unravel instead. It all began with a series of misdelivered letters. For several weeks, I received insurance claim documents addressed to Linda, but bearing my address. Initially, I assumed it was a simple clerical error. I marked them as wrong address and returned them to the Postal Service. However, the letters persisted. Envelopes from Allstate, State Farm, Progressive, all featuring different policy numbers, but the same unsettling pattern. This is odd, I murmured one morning, examining yet another envelope marked urgent, claim approval in bold red letters. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Inside was a check for $12,000 made out to Linda Thompson for water damage to a property listed at my exact address. Confusion washed over me. In the 3 years I'd lived here, there had been no incidents of water damage. The house was impeccably maintained, and even during heavy storms, the drainage worked flawlessly. Something was amiss. As I pondered my next move, the doorbell rang. Standing there was Linda, a petite woman exuding an air of authority, dressed in her signature navy blazer adorned with gold buttons, despite the sweltering summer heat. Her expression was one of thinly veiled impatience. "I believe you have my mail," she stated curtly, bypassing any form of greeting. "The post office mentioned they might have delivered some important documents to your address by mistake." I hesitated, the opened envelope still in my hand. "Actually, Linda, I was about to reach out to you. There's some confusion. This insurance claim lists my address but is in your name." Her eyes flicked to the envelope, and for a fleeting moment, I detected a flash of panic before she regained her composure. "Clearly, it's a clerical error. Hand it over, and I'll sort it out with the insurance company." Her reaction fell off. Having dealt with Linda during numerous HOA meetings, I was familiar with her tactics. She once claimed that refurbishing the community playground would cost $50,000, but I discovered a quote for half that amount buried in the meeting minutes. "I think it's best if I hold on to this for now," I replied calmly. "Since it involves my property, I'd like to contact the insurance company directly to clarify matters." Her face reddened. "You will do no such thing," she snapped, abandoning any pretense of civility. "As HOA president, I'm instructing you to hand over that envelope immediately, or you'll face significant fines for violating community mail protocols." I couldn't help but chuckle. Community mail protocols? That's not a thing, Linda. It's outlined in Section 12, Paragraph 3 of the bylaws, she insisted, her voice rising. A $500 fine per violation. I was well versed in the bylaws, having defended myself against her baseless complaints multiple times. "No, it's not. But insurance fraud is a serious matter, and I'm beginning to question what's really going on here." Then Linda made her first critical mistake. She lunged forward, attempting to snatch the envelope from my grasp. I stepped back, startled by her aggression, causing her to nearly stumble into my foyer. "Give it to me now," she demanded, her shrill voice likely echoing throughout the neighborhood. "I think it's time for you to leave," I said firmly, closing the door enough to block her entry, but not enough to make contact. "For the record, I'm retaining all documentation sent to my address. If there's nothing untoward, you shouldn't object to me verifying these claims." Her face contorted with rage. And was that a hint of fear? "You have no idea who you're crossing," she hissed. "I can make your life in this community unbearable. Your cherished garden? Gone. That shed encroaching 2 inches over the property line? Demolished. That electric car charging station? Removed. I'll uncover every single violation if it's the last thing I do." As she stormed off, I noticed my neighbor, Tom, meticulously tending to his lawn across the street. He offered me a knowing look and a subtle thumbs up. Apparently, I wasn't the only one weary of Linda's tyrannical rule. That night, I delved deeper into the matter. I contacted the first insurance company and, without revealing my identity, inquired about water damage claims. I then reached out to another and another. A disturbing pattern emerged. Over the past year, Linda had filed water damage claims with 7 different insurance companies, all citing my address as the damaged property. The following morning, I discovered a violation notice taped to my front door. According to Linda, my grass was a 1/4 inch too high, my mailbox was the incorrect shade of black, and the bird feeder in my backyard was an unauthorized wildlife feeding station. The total fines amounted to $1,200. I smiled as I removed the notice. If she thought this would intimidate me, she was sorely mistaken. As a risk assessment analyst for a major bank, I specialized in detecting fraud patterns, and Linda had just presented me with a textbook case. Rather than confronting her directly again, I compiled all the evidence, the letters, the checks, the dates, the companies, and assembled a comprehensive report. I then contacted the state insurance fraud division to report my findings. Initially, the investigator on the phone seemed disinterested, but his demeanor shifted dramatically when I mentioned the multiple companies and the total claim amount, which exceeded $80,000. "Sir, what you're describing could constitute a federal offense," he said, his tone now serious. "Insurance fraud across multiple carriers can trigger an FBI investigation, especially at this scale. We'll need to take your statement officially." 2 days later, I found myself in a downtown office with Agent Rodriguez, walking her through my findings. She took meticulous notes, her expression growing increasingly grave. "This is what we call premium diversion," she explained. "Taking out multiple policies on the same property with different companies and filing identical claims repeatedly. It's a common form of insurance fraud, but using someone else's address adds a new layer of deception." As the investigation proceeded discreetly, Linda's harassment campaign against me intensified. More violation notices appeared. Guest cars were towed from perfectly legal parking spots. She even attempted to report my house to the city for code violations, none of which held merit. The neighborhood began to take notice. Residents who had previously remained silent during Linda's reign started reaching out. It turned out I wasn't her only target, just her latest. Susan from 3 doors down had been fined for her daughter's chalk drawings on their own driveway. Mike on the corner had been reported for having an American flag that was allegedly 2 inches larger than regulation size. The stories were endless. A month passed, and I began to wonder if anything would come of my report. Then, on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning, as I was backing out of my driveway, I saw them. 3 unmarked sedans parked in front of Linda's house. Men and women in dark suits and windbreakers emblazoned with FBI approached her door. I parked my car halfway out of the driveway, stunned into stillness as the agents knocked on Linda's door with professional precision. Word spread through the cul-de-sac like wildfire. Lawnmowers stopped mid-pass. Neighbors stood frozen behind half-open blinds, their coffee forgotten in trembling hands. It wasn't every day the FBI descended on a suburban HOA president. Linda answered the door, her signature arrogance visibly crumbling. She tried to maintain her posture, chin high, arms crossed, but her knees betrayed her. She wobbled as agents presented a warrant, then slowly turned to comply. A collective hush fell over Maplewood residences. Not a soul dared speak as the once-feared Linda Thompson was led out in handcuffs, her hair frizzy, blazer wrinkled, and face void of all color. She didn't look at anyone. She didn't scream or argue. She just walked like a hollowed-out version of herself. The woman who once threatened to bulldoze my shed for a 2-inch overhang now looked like someone walking into her own funeral. Later that evening, my phone erupted with messages. The neighborhood grapevine had kicked into overdrive. Rumors swirled, each more shocking than the last. And for once, most of them were true. Apparently, the fraud extended far beyond just my home. Linda had been running identical scams using addresses in at least 4 other HOA communities she consulted for on the side. The estimated fraud? Over $300,000. That Friday, Maplewood held an emergency HOA meeting, the most crowded in the community's history. For the first time, the folding chairs ran out. People stood against the back wall and spilled into the hallway. Tom, our soft-spoken vice president, stood at the podium with a mixture of sadness and liberation in his eyes. Effective immediately, he announced, Linda Thompson has been removed from her position as HOA president. The board voted unanimously this morning. A wave of applause erupted, not loud or mocking, but filled with cathartic relief. Neighbors glanced at each other with expressions that said, "Is it finally over?" In addition, Tom continued, all violation notices issued in the past 3 months are being suspended pending formal review. An audit of HOA finances is already underway. A slow, collective exhale passed through the room. After the meeting, as I stood outside chatting with Susan and Mike, I felt a firm tap on my shoulder. I turned to see Agent Rodriguez, dressed in plain clothes, but unmistakably official. "I thought you'd like an update," she said quietly. "MS. Thompson has been charged with 6 counts of insurance fraud, 3 counts of mail fraud, and 1 count of identity theft. The minimum sentence she's facing is 7 years, and the fines could exceed $1 million. I was speechless. My brain tried to comprehend the weight of it all. "She used your address because she thought you'd stay quiet," Rodriguez added. "But you didn't." That night, as I settled into bed with a book I couldn't focus on, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar email notification. The subject line stopped me cold. "You ruined my life." I hesitated, then opened it. It was a single paragraph. No greeting, no punctuation, just Linda's digital voice barely holding itself together. "I hope you're satisfied with yourself. I've lost everything, my home, my reputation, my freedom, all. Because you couldn't just hand me my mail. The board was everything to me, and now it's gone. They're saying I'll never hold another position of trust. They're saying I can't get insured. Again, they're saying I'll never be allowed back into Maplewood. This isn't justice. This is persecution. I will never forgive you for this, never." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. But what could I say? That I didn't want it to end like this? That I warned her? That she brought this on herself? In the end, I simply closed the email and let the silence speak for itself. Because the truth was, even now, Linda didn't understand. She still believed that the rules didn't apply to her. That power gave her the right to step on people. That a title like HOA president was a license to intimidate. But she forgot one thing. Power without integrity always collapses. In the weeks that followed, life in Maplewood began to shift. Neighbors started smiling again. The playground renovations resumed, this time using the real budget. Tom set up monthly open forums, inviting every resident to voice concerns, propose projects, and even volunteer. For the first time, the HOA felt like a community, not a dictatorship. One afternoon, Susan came by with a homemade peach cobbler. "For being the one who stood up," she said, her voice warm and kind. "You didn't just help yourself. You helped all of us." I thanked her and closed the door, cobbler in hand, a strange warmth in my chest. Not just from the sugar and cinnamon, but from something deeper. From knowing that I hadn't just survived Linda Thompson. I had outlasted her, and maybe, just maybe, helped rebuild something better in her wake. And that felt like justice.